Preface. When you finally see through the punishment that is existence, and the mercy that is this present moment, feel free to call yourself a Buddhist. If you've surrounded yourself with all that Zen crap to look for answers, you'll eventually find yourself at the end. This is my clumsy attempt to describe an understanding of this unbelievably annoying thing, which Eastern philosophy dubs the ego. Like any work surrounding Zen, there's little consistency and many borrowed descriptions from those that came before me. Little of what I present are original insights, and you can find most of them in texts which are thousands of years old. I just do my best to make it more consumable for those that are interested. In other words, I'm not trying to talk mysticism, just plain English. The philosophy that Buddhism deals with can't quite be said, and only an absolute idiot would even try to explain it in words. So if you leave this book with the idea that you understand anything about Zen, you would have missed the point entirely. You can really classify all philosophy under two sects. The first one includes Western and academic philosophy, which is just an exercise of the intellect that deals with solving matters of abstract thought problems, which is just saying it's glorified mental masturbation. In the second sect, a philosopher is nothing more than a person who remains completely baffled by the fact that other people aren't seeing what he's seeing, and he presents to the world his findings as an objet trouvé. Such a philosopher was a man by the name of Siddhartha Gautama, and I believe that his works are worth a closer look. In experimenting with psychedelic chemicals, I found myself obsessed with what I had experienced, and eventually began pursuit of realizing the ego. I eventually concluded that what is being referred to is more or less a state of post-hypnotic suggestion, and that it's the most common state of awareness you'll come across in civilizations around the world. A false sense of I, which plagues near all human beings, is what is meant by the illusion that you read about in Buddhistic philosophy. The ultimate conclusion Zen students are made to take away more than theoretically is that your will is not free. But you can't just tell that to people and expect them to understand what that really means. I understand that it all sounds far-fetched, but you were bored enough to pick this up, so it's worth entertaining yourself with the arguments. I also believe that a good deal of the spread of this illusion, particularly in the northern regions of India, can be traced back to the British Raj, and more specifically, the Victorian culture that remains dominant in these regions. The idea is that when we're young, we get enchanted in the truest sense by all that civilization bothers us with, especially by matters of profit and loss, or anything that can be considered to a factor of our own survival. And in doing so, we lose awareness of the larger context in which all of these factors are taking place. Through extreme escapism, which further fuels repetition and thought, we begin to sense ourselves as being separate from reality instead of aspects of it. To borrow the phrases of Watson Korzybski, you think about things so much that you eventually get into the state where you're eating the menu instead of the dinner, valuing the money more than the wealth, and most accurately, confusing the map for the territory. This overly abstract conception of reality, which I understand to be the most prevalent hold of common sense, coaxes people into believing the absurd idea that the purpose of life lies in the future. This is why, as civilized beings, most of us are conditioned to be rude and hostile. These are displays of the Victorian culture that surrounds us not being present here and now. This confusion of symbol and reality can easily be seen amongst those that bother themselves with historical territory and ideology. More accurately, with symbols. Presence, as Zen talks about it, is to be all there, or more accurately, be all here. And if you're involved in civilization in any capacity, then you don't quite recognize it, but your thoughts are more elusive than you'd imagine. What really sucks is that so long as you're involved in civilization, the illusion isn't something you can escape in totality. But we'll get to that. This conformed understanding of life essentially conditions you to exist in repetition. This, of course, also influences those around you, especially impressionable children who are liable to adopt the same attitudes towards life. That is to say, maintaining the understanding that life is a battle and a drag, which is why all of us are conditioned to speedrun the damn thing. In Victorian culture, you're educated into believing that life is a process of linear progression, and that you must conform to the cultural ideal of mediocrity. In other words, do what you're told or risk vilification.